Man charged with 13 counts of murder in the Fort Hood shooting rampage expected in court today. In a pretrial hearing that could start any minute now, a military judge will consider a defense motion for a neurologist to examine Major Nidal Hasan at the government's expense. The Army psychiatrist is facing the death penalty if convicted of murdering 13 people in November 2009. Dozens more were wounded in the rampage that shocked the nation and raised concerns about homegrown terror even within our own military. Hasan is expected to go on trial in August in a case that could hinge on his mental health. Former JAG Jeffrey King joins us now from Dallas. Jeffrey, we hear that in civilian court an insanity defense rarely works. What about in military court, courts martial?
Well, it's the same kind of thing. It works, but in a different way. In order to find that Major Hasan was at all just not responsible for his misconduct back in 2009, well, that's a huge hurdle. Where it's going to become extremely relevant is in the sentencing phase. Assuming he is convicted, the defense is going to put on a huge mitigation case to essentially try to save his life. And so in that sense, it's going to be incredibly relevant, and I think, quite frankly, it will work in that sense.
What about this request by his defense team for a government neurologist to examine him? What's that going to do? What's it going to provide?
Well, it all depends. Clearly, it was denied when they requested it from the government to have that expert, so now they're before the court. So the military judge is going to really answer two questions. The first is this expert relevant and necessary? In other words, what is he going to say and what will it accomplish? Now, it'll be pretty easy for him to answer those questions because, as you said, this does hinge on the mental health of Major Hasan. So the real question is going to be, does the government have an adequate substitute? So it's going to be between two experts. The government's expert, who will be a military neurologist who will cost no money to the government, and they'll put his resume in front of the defense's expert, and the judge will make up his mind. So it's going to really come down to the qualifications of the expert and whether or not the government's expert is an adequate substitute.
He could face the possibility of life in prison or the death penalty. If you were his defense lawyer, I mean, would you guess that they are looking for anything they can just to try to prevent the imposition of the death penalty here?
Yes. Well, they've already done a lot to try to do that with the community authority before they even referred charges. They went to the post commander and tried to convince him not to refer this case as a death penalty case, because that's kind of what started this whole thing off. So now the death penalty is definitely on the table. If he's convicted, the jury is going to have to decide whether or not they're going to put this man to death. Yeah, they're going to put everything they have into saving his life, and they're going to think about that during the case in chief and in sentencing, obviously.
There are so many, I don't have to tell you, so many members of our military, so many military families and families of his victims, both living and dead, who are so disgusted with the slow pace of this thing. Originally, the trial was supposed to start last March, and his own defense team has delayed it a couple of times. How much longer can they keep pushing this thing back? Would you expect it really will go to trial in August?
Well, I think, frankly, a lot of that probably depends on what happens today. August 20th, as I understand, is the trial date when it's set to go, and I believe they actually requested an October date, and the judge decided on August. So I think he intends to go to trial in August, being the military judge. Once the expert is approved today, that expert who, because he hasn't been paid, hasn't looked at any documentary evidence, he probably has not interviewed Major Hasan and actually provided an evaluation to the defense team. So all that has to take place after today. So the question becomes, will there be enough time for that doctor to help the defense prepare for the case that is set to begin in August? If they don't think there's enough time, then they'll put in another continuance. If they do, then they won't, and this thing will get started on August 20th. So I think it's likely it'll start on August 20th, to answer your question, but a lot of it hinges on what happens today.
Well, I think a lot of military people certainly hope that they finally get this trial underway. Jeffrey King, a former military JAG, thank you.